Hi, this is Rob Yates, and this is the video for Algebra 1, classwork number 1, which you should know is on page 6 of Algebra 1, Volume 1, and it is the numbers 4, 6, 7, and 8. If we read problem 4, on page 6, it says Angelica is working with function machines. She has the two machines shown at right. Here are her two machines. One says y equals the square root of x minus 5, and the other says y equals x squared minus 6. She wants to put them in order so that the output of the first machine becomes the input of the second machine. And she wants to begin with an input of 6. For A, it asks, what order must we put these machines in to get a final output of 5? Well, speaking of letters, let's call this A, and we'll call this B. So, let's start with the order that they've given us to us in, which is the square root of x minus 5. So, we're going to write 6 minus 5. And the square root of 6 minus 5 equals the square root of 1, which we know is 1. And we're going to take that 1 now, which is the output of A, and plug it into B. We would get 1 squared minus 6. Well, 1 squared minus 6 is 1 times 1, which is 1, minus 6, which is negative 5. Is negative 5 the same as 5? I don't think so. So, for A, our proper order must be to take our 6 and plug it in to B first, which would be 6 squared minus 6, which is actually 6 times 6, right? And 6 times 6 is 36, minus 6 would be, and we take this and we plug it into A now. So that would be y equals the square root of 30 minus 5. Well, if you subtract 5 from 30, I think you know what you get. What is the square root of 25? It is 5, right? There we go. So the answer to A is, first, x squared minus 6, then the square root of x minus 5. B would be an easy question for us, because it says, is it possible for her to find an input that will get a final output of negative 5? If so, show how she could do that. And if not, explain why not. And the answer to B is, of course, what we started out with, which is y equals the square root of x minus 5. We plug in 6. Then we plug that output into x squared minus 6, and we get negative 5. All right. Let's take a look at our next problem. It says examine on the right. And it says on your paper, sketch figures 4 and 5. Well, it's difficult to visualize these. Hopefully you're looking at the book, but the first one looks something like that. The second one looks something like this. And the third one looks something like this. This is 1, this is 2, This is 3. Wants us to draw 4 and 5. Well, if we look here, we can see that there are 3 tiles in here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles in number 2. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in number 4. So we can tell the pattern is it's going up 2 each time. So we could even be more detailed, and we could say it is adding 1 to each end. Plus 1, right? 1 here, 1 here. Figure 4 would look something like this, wouldn't it? It would have to have 9, so we would have 5 tiles going up and 5 going out for a total of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Figure 5 would be 9 plus 2, which is 11. And I'm just adding a tile to here and to here. So it would look something like this. Total of 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 tiles. B asks us to explain how does it grow. We would write it grows by 2 tiles. If we want to be specific, we could say 1 added 2 each end. And then it asks kind of a tricky question for C. It says, how many tiles will there be in figure 0? So that would be up here, 0. Now, if we go up 2 each time, you have to take the number of tiles in figure 1 and subtract 2, and that's your answer. I think you can figure it out. So I'll let you do that. Number 7 is a review of simplification of expressions. If you punch these into your calculator, you should be able to get the correct answer. For instance, A says negative 42 plus negative 17. What would that be? Well, when we're adding a negative, we're just subtracting, right? So negative 42 plus negative 17 is another way of saying negative 42 minus 17. Or if you want to think in terms of money, it's like you owe somebody $42 and you borrowed 17 more. So in the end, you'd owe them $59, wouldn't you? Sure you would. B says 8 minus negative 9. What are we doing when we subtract a negative? If you said we're adding, you're right. It is the opposite of the opposite, which means it's a positive. 8 plus 9 is 17. C says 8 times negative 9. Well, we know what a positive times a negative is, don't we? Yeah, that's right, it's a negative. What is 8 times 9? I think you can figure that out. I'm going to let you do that. D says, I want you to divide negative 42 by negative 7. A good way to remember the rules for division is to remember that they're not any different than the rules for multiplication. That is to say, when a negative times a negative equals a positive, a negative divided by a negative also equals a positive. So we know our answer is going to be positive. We just have to figure out what is 42 divided by 7. Whatever that number is what goes here. E is in parentheses. It says negative 2, and then there's a parentheses, negative 3, then there's another parentheses, negative 4, and that means they're all multiplied together. And we know that a negative times a negative is a positive, but then a positive times a negative is a negative, so we know our answer is going to be negative. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is what? That's right. Fill that in right there. G and H, I'm going to go ahead and skip to them, and I'm going to close with them and move on, are interesting because they remind us that to get the correct answer out of our calculator, we have to put them in parentheses. G has it in parentheses, and it says, what is negative 5 squared in parentheses? If you plug that into your calculator, this is what you're going to get. F has a problem that looks almost exactly the same. Negative 5 squared. If you plug this into your calculator, however, this is the answer you'll get. Why is this answer different than this answer? The answer is, without the parentheses there, your calculator thinks that what's going on now is you want to know what negative 1 times 5 is, and that is in fact 25. Whereas when you put the parentheses in here, your calculator knows, oh, you want to know what negative 5 times negative 5 is, and yes, that is positive 25. So remember that when you're using your calculator. Use parentheses to do your squared negatives, or you're going to get the wrong answer, and you don't want to do that. Let's take a look at 8. 8 says for each equation below, find y if x equals 2. And the first one that it gives us is y equals 7 minus the absolute value of x, which we're going to go ahead and plug that 2 in. Well, the absolute value of 2 is 2. 7 minus 2, what does that equal? I knew you know that one. I'm not even going to tell you what that one is. You go ahead and fill that one in. That was A. B says y equals 2 squared minus 1. Remember your order of operations. We have to do the 2 squared first. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 1. Yeah, I think you can do that one too, don't you? Sure you can. C. C says y equals the square root of 2 plus 14. We have to do this 2 plus 14 first, so we have y equals the square root of 16. What's the square root of 16? What same number multiplied together by itself equals 16? I think you can figure that out. I'll let you do it. Well, thanks for joining us on this homework help video. If you have any questions, please see your algebra teacher. Remember, there's help in the library in the mornings and after school. And also your teachers are available. After school, check to see which Algebra 1 teacher you can get help from on the day you're free.